Is the rooster there, Chris?
Good morning, and Jason, like you, I'm a big Danny Smith guy, and I didn't know that, so that is frightening to hear about to start your morning. Perhaps more frightening than a 37-3 loss.
It was a bad loss, and obviously we spent a lot of this morning talking about the quarterback and the offensive woes. I'm going to tee you up because this is one of your favorite things to talk about, which is balance in an offense.
Yes.
So Sam Howell's thrown the ball 99 times. He's been sacked 19 times. He's run it 5 times. So by my math, that's 123 dropbacks. And they've run the ball, minus Sam Howell's 5 runs, 59 times.
Yeah.
Do you think they need to run more, particularly early, just to help the quarterback out?
Of course. I mean, listen, I understand the new age mentality in the dopey NFL is to pass to set up the run. I got it. I get all the number nerds. I understand everybody wants points. I understand everybody thinks the running game has no other benefit other than just simply serving as a placeholder. I got it. It's all wrong. You need to run the football to set up play action, to help your offensive line, to help your quarterback get easier reads, to get your wide receivers some different looks in coverage. You need to be a little bit more balanced. Nobody's saying that you have to run it 50% of the time, or certainly even more than that. I'm shocked that Eric Bieniemy, as much praise as he's gotten, and rightfully so, is as heavily skewed pass to run as he's been. I thought this would come more middle of the season if, the running game wasn't particularly effective, or if he really developed a certain feel and rhythm with Sam Howell in this offensive line. I thought it would come later in the season. Early in the season, I thought it would be a run to set up the pass, or at least a more balanced approach. But, JP, as you just mentioned, all 3 games have been heavily skewed in the first half, and overall, pass to run. And that's their identity right now. It is pass to run, which I'm fine with as long as it works. Guess what? It doesn't work, and it hasn't worked, and it's not working. And it's not working partially because Sam Howell holds on to the ball too long, and partially because the offensive line is not good enough. And then the other part is, some of the receivers haven't quite honestly. I mean, there's been times where Sam's missed them, but they haven't gotten a ton of separation on a bunch of these sacks when you go back and you look at all the overhead shots and the all-22.
Yeah, I thought McLaurin and Dotson would both have been more impactful through 3 weeks than they have been. And I don't know if that's just a function of a young quarterback finding his way, if they're not getting as open as they were in Scott Turner's offense. I can't put my finger on it, but if this team wants to win games, they've got to lean into McLaurin and Dotson, in my opinion.
Well, here's the thing, Cakes. Like, why don't we try and do more? And I know wide receiver screens can, and they run some of them, and they can get blown up when you do them too much. I got it. But get them into a rhythm early with not only a wide receiver screen, a little tunnel screen where the receiver kind of comes down the line of scrimmage towards the quarterback, if you will, and you get them the ball kind of like on the move in like a box area around the line of scrimmage, or God forbid a slant. We've seen some of it, but get them easy looks, easy throws, easy reads. And that's what I haven't seen enough of. And I was so hopeful with the running back screen game last week where they dialed it up finally, thank goodness, 3 times for 75-plus yards combined on those 3 particular plays, all on second down. I was so hopeful that, okay, now I'm trying to see what Eric Bieniemy is seeing and thinking. And this drove me crazy with Scott Turner. Again, they didn't get the easy looks, the easy reads to try and get their quarterback, to try and get their offensive line, to get their passing game, and to get their receivers into a rhythm. What's wrong with trying to get Terry and Jahan the ball immediately? And Curtis as well. I mean, you shouldn't have to dial up 37-yard wheel route to Curtis Samuel or I should say a go route for your most productive play of the first half. There should be way easier opportunities if you're going to be pass heavy to get them the ball around the line of scrimmage. That's what Bieniemy and Reed did in Kansas City, and they're not doing it. They're not doing a good enough job of it, whether by design or by execution.
What if the reason they're not doing it, and I don't know the answer, but what if the reason they're not doing it is that is not the strength of this offensive line? that the offensive line, look, when you run a wide receiver screen, you need your tackle, you need your guards to get out there and block, and maybe they're not fast at doing that, and he's limited based on a weaker offensive line and some of the play calling.
No, it's a great question, JP. But here's my question: through 3 games, do we think the strength of this offensive line is to drop back and hold up for 3+ seconds in pass pro?
Not with Sam Howell patting onto the ball,
right? And that's part of the problem too. I mean, again, the offensive line is not to blame for everything. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying the offensive line sucks. It's terrible. There's no hope. There's no nothing. A lot of this is on Sam, and some of it is on the enemy in terms of play design and execution and philosophy and mentality and all that stuff. I mean, obviously, everybody should share the blame. But my point being is, and I totally get what you're saying, and clearly that's the reason why they haven't emphasized the natural running back screen game outside of last week in a lot of the last couple of years since Morgan Moses and Brandon Scherf left, or their bodies broke down or whatever, and Chris Thompson obviously was no longer with the team, is because they didn't have, A, the running back, B, they didn't have the offensive tackles, guards, what have you, to get out. Now, personally, I think, to me, Cosme and Wiley on the right side are more than capable of getting out. Now, you want to say, well, wide receiver, if they're really lined up wide, well, how about not lining them up wide? How about, how about moving one of them into the slot and targeting if I can speak in English, targeting them that way. Get the ball out of Howell's hands. Don't put him in a situation where he's got to pat the ball and think and run for his life. I mean, the first sack yesterday, I'm trying to remember, there was an Ed Oliver sack, and they ultimately wound up, splitting it. I mean, just by watching it in person, he held on to it for like 3.5 seconds. Way too long in the NFL. You can't do that. You cannot do that against good pass rushes or great pass rushes. And guess what's waiting for you in Philadelphia? A really good pass rush.
But this is what we're kind of forgetting here. All right, the offensive line is obviously struggling. Sam Howell has made 4 career starts. You really can't judge a quarterback until 30 to 40 starts. It maybe even more. Maybe even 3 years. So that, talking about 45, 50 starts.
Like a fully fair evaluation.
Yeah, so the fact that, he had a horrible game, F grade. But, man, and he's probably going to have more of these.
Yeah.
But my point is, a 5th-round pick with maybe a new coach next year has a much shorter leash than Sam Howell. If Sam Howell was a 1st-round pick, even if there was a new coach coming in next year, he's got 3 seasons minimum. I mean, Justin Fields is in year 3. He's getting worse.
Right.
They probably go in a different direction next year. But 4 starts, it's almost like you can't even judge it.
Well, like to your point, Jason, like it took the Jets 2 full years of Zach Wilson to decide to move on, and now they're stuck with Zach Wilson again, but that wasn't by plan or by design. Justin Fields, you just mentioned, he comes here next Thursday. What a disaster. I mean, somehow if Washington could, find a way to beat Philadelphia, which they did last year, so I guess anything could happen. There's a good chance they can go, recover from this and go 4-1. But anyway, that's thinking.
You don't really believe that,
though.
No.
No.
Oh, okay.
I mean, 3-2 at best. Right. But to your point, yes, we all have to have more patience. Here's the problem. I was sitting next to Grant yesterday on that first drive. I don't know if you guys remember. They were cooking a little bit.
Yes.
And I was just about to say.
And there was some balance until the 2 sacks.
Absolutely. And JP, I was just about to say to Grant, I said, man, say whatever you want about Sam Howell. And I've said it all. I said it on Twitter. I said, he's going to drive you batty crazy. But I think he's the guy. I think he's a guy that can help you be a long-term star. I don't know if he's going to Canton or anything like that. I'm not being ridiculous. He's not Joe Montana or Tom Brady, but I think he can be the guy. And then all of a sudden, it was just an avalanche of crap basically rolling downhill. You guys saw the number, I'm sure. Like at one point during the late third quarter, he was under pressure 80% of his dropbacks, and I think the number finished at like 69%, and that's according to Next Gen Stats, which is the computer chip technology and whatever. So I mean, that's real like data. Okay, that's not just artificial like, hey, this is what I see. I mean, from the press box, every time he dropped back to throw, he had a heat-seeking missile almost in his face. Now, some of that is on Sam. Again, he's got to get rid of it quicker. Like, and then he's drifting away. He's throwing off his back foot. Like on the 4th down incompletion, 4th and goal incompletion.
Off the back foot, yeah.
Exactly. He's got a guy in his face or coming downhill at him, but he's drifting away and he throws off his back foot. That's why he's got no mustard on the ball, and I don't know. I mean, listen, I'm not a coach. I'm not a scout. I'm not trying to pretend to be one, but all I know is there's got to be a way to get the ball out of Sam's hands quicker, period.
Well,
and it's going to help the offensive line. It's going to help the receivers, and it's going to help Sam.
Well, there's a reason for it, though. I mean, look, we were talking about it earlier. What you mentioned, right? So the second most pressured quarterback in the history of next-gen stats.
Yeah.
All right? So just think about that for a second. So the guy, it's like a tornado, a hurricane, every single play in his face. And then Pro Football Focus has a stat that I wasn't aware of until today through the first 2 weeks. We had the second most perfectly covered receivers, which doesn't make sense, in all of football through 2 weeks. So he's under incredible duress, and then our receivers are covered.
Right.
So that no wonder he's patting the ball.
Yeah, and right, exactly, and that's what I'm seeing.
And offensive line blows. It's a deadly trifecta.
Combination, right? Yeah, and I'm not seeing covered receivers on every single play. I don't want to make like Sam hasn't missed some guys. He has missed some guys, but.
But it's like 45% or something, which is the second most.
I mean, one or two of those interceptions, and I haven't watched the all 22 yet, and it's not available until like tomorrow, whatever. And I don't spend there, watching every play, but I'll watch the interceptions, I'll watch the sacks because that's what I'm most interested in. But when you look at that stuff, even when you look at some of the TV replays that CBS showed yesterday in the press box, you see like hook routes and what. I mean, there's no space, there's no window, there's no real opportunity for those guys to get the ball safely. And then, what happens is, was it the first interception where he tries to feather it over the middle linebacker, and that kid had an unbelievable game. He's kind of filled the role of Tremaine Edmonds.
I've seen every quarterback make that throw, though.
I know, but and he tries to get it over him, but the kid makes a tremendous athletic play. That was what I was worried about coming into this game, but with Matt Milano, their other linebacker, I didn't know much about the other kid. And by the way, guys, I don't know if you saw this. Not surprising. I went back, and I'm all the way back to 1991, game by game. Okay, so 2 years so far?
Yep.
And I got more. They haven't had a game where they allowed 37 or more points, allowed 9 or more sacks, and turned the ball over 5 or more times. They haven't had a game in the last 32 years that really even came close to that. There's one game against the New Orleans Saints in 2002 that they had like 5 turnovers, 7 sacks, and allowed like 42 points. That triple threat combination might just make this, depending on your perspective, the worst loss that this team has endured, like from a competitive balance standpoint in
20-some years.
35 years.
Hey, Rooster, speaking of turnovers, Gibby, 14 touches on the season, 2 fumbles. As you like to say, Chateau Bow Wow, he's so buried deep in there, he may never come out.
I mean, I don't know how you trust him because everybody screamed after game 1, throw him the football.
Right.
Throw him, and I know that was over the middle. I got it. I understand there's more traffic. So now what do we have to do? Do we have to design for him to run a pass route on a parachute along the sideline on a sky cam so that we get him away from everybody? I mean, you can't trust him. I don't know how you trust him. I never thought he was coming back at the end of this year. Everyone thought he was going to be like the man in Eric Bieniemy's offense. Well, you can't be the man if you can't hold on to the damn football. Please. I mean, again, I know Sam Howell's got a ton of interceptions. Again, there's some reasons for that, as we've discussed, and there's some growth there. And he's got to cut that out too. But Antonio Gibson, in whatever opportunities he gets as a runner, as a pass catcher, just simply cannot have that. The problem, guys, I think B-Rob is a better receiver than he has shown or been allowed to show. The problem is they don't have really a natural third down back right now. Mm-hmm. And that's why I wonder if you don't see a major reduction in Antonio Gibson's playtime, at least for now. Meaning they don't have a natural replacement on the roster. Jared Patterson's gone. I think he signed with the Chargers, I want to say.
Yep.
And Chris Rodriguez is not ready for that role. And Jonathan Williams is on IR. So they don't have right now somebody to really, truly replace Antonio Gibson.
And next week, and we'll see what happens tonight with Philly, but and I know they haven't looked great defensively, but they're going to come after Sam Howell. And Sam Howell's the most hit quarterback. He's got the most sacks. It's not going to get any better next week because you could argue that defensive line next week's better than the one they just saw.
The Bills only had 3 sacks going into this game.
So
remember, this is a Bills defense without Von Miller.
Right.
So, I mean, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, the other first-round pick from Georgia.
Yeah, Jordan Davis or
Fletcher
Reddick.
Cox, right,
Yeah,
Jordan Davis, Hassan Reddick. And Reddick's been kind of, exactly. I mean, they have – now, the only thing you hope is you catch them shorthanded because they got to travel, Monday night. Maybe Tampa gives them a run. I think Tampa will be able to keep it close. They play on a Monday night, short week, travel back, what have you, short week. Maybe they overlook Washington, thinking they maybe. I don't know. Maybe
Rooster,
they did that
we're out
last
of time. The other factor, though, is the defense wasn't very good either.
No, it wasn't.
And they gave up 212 yards of offense in the first half.
They were
9
terrible
to 15
on third
downs.
Yeah.
Almost 400 yards overall. Obviously, they weren't helped by the offense. But, they got a lot of issues to address. But they're 2-1 if you want to look at the bright side.
Absolutely.
They banked 2 wins early. And at the end of the season, you're just going to look at wins and losses, not necessarily the quality of the win or the quality of the loss. Thanks, Rooster.
Thank you, guys. Bright and cheery Sports Talk Radio ahead, boys and girls.
Chris Russell, you can check him out on the Chris Russell Show on the Team 980.